What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Coast to Coast. I'm Ronan Gaine. Joining me, as always, Chris Nambu. NBA free agency is in full flow. The Knicks finally have a head coach. The Lakers finally have a center. There's a lot going on. We're going to be breaking it down for you here. Mainly sticking positive. We're going to be talking, obviously, the breaking news of the day. We're recording here on Wednesday night, which is the Knicks hiring the coach, Ayton signing with the Lakers. We'll also be talking some of the biggest winners of free agency and the offseason so far. But before we get into it all, Chris, how you doing, man?
I'm doing great. The Bulls are signing their 17th point guard, so there's really nothing else to talk about beyond that. But I'm just great. Happy you have your new head coach. Why don't we just start there?
Yeah, let's get into it. I mean, let's we won't count our chickens before they hatch. This is James Dolan, who knows he could turn around tomorrow and all of a sudden decide that Mike Brown isn't the guy for him. But it appears as though all signs are pointing towards Mike Brown being the next coach of the New York Knicks. What is it? It's just a little under a year since he was dismissed by the Sacramento Kings, and I'm really not too sure how I feel about this. I obviously want to be
Hmm.
excited. I want to be positive, but I'm also like, has has Mike Brown got to the stage where he's just a guy who knows how to nail it in an interview?
What? What? Wait, that Ronan, I am shocked right now. We didn't talk about this at all before air, like how you felt about it. I assumed that we were going to come on air and you were going to be ecstatic that it was either going to be him or Taylor Jenkins and both would be a great choice and then talk about the good stuff that we feel about Brown. I did not know that you're a sleeper Mike Brown hater. This is news to me. This is probably more breaking than Mike Brown actually getting to the Knicks. Why? Talk to me. Talk to me. Let's talk it through. What is so? What's worrying you about the signing here?
I mean, it's just like what's the last sort of playoff success he's had as an NBA coach?
Okay, we'll talk through his teams. Let's go through it. The the King squads that he's had, and then the injured, the Warrior squad that he had is the most recent evidence we have to date. But what we do have evidence of is how he's been able to bolster a team's defense with a lot less defensive talent than you'd want to see. The fact that in 2 seasons ago, when you look at Mike Brown and how he was really uplifted that Kings team, coach of the year, and how that Kings team was like the best offensive team in the league, but also put together a average NBA defense. And in that year, with the center situation they had, Sabonis not being a defensive minded center, not having a lot of perimeter defensive talent, like it was that kind of season. And the seasons thereafter, where they didn't have the top five defense, didn't have the top 10 defense. Well, they didn't have top 10 defensive talent on that roster. And I think that was enough evidence for us to feel pretty good about him, being able to navigate. Question whether or not he's able to navigate the star talent, but he's been around it, and we know that that was De'Aaron Fox's guy. We know that he's a guy that's loved in the locker room. So just in terms of how he connects with players, how players talk about him, and his ability to make a what would be a bad defense solid, I mean those are pretty encouraging signs, I would say.
No, I mean, don't get me wrong. This is coming from a place of fear and of potentially, obviously, maybe wanting Taylor Jenkins to be the guy. Because one thing we've seen about Mike Brown, at least I think we've seen growth from him as a coach. I could think back to those Cavs teams he had with LeBron. I think he was often touted as a very defensive-minded coach, and then with Sacramento, he led them to be the number one offense in the NBA, one of the best offenses that we've ever seen, while still being able to be have a competent defense with the players, like you said, the players that shouldn't really have been able to do that. So I mean, like I do like what I see. Like Mike Brown is a great coach. I do believe in him in terms of like basketball minds out there. Like he definitely is one of the best, and I do think he can have this a positive impact. I think I know, like obviously, I said that what I said at the start. That was maybe a bit off the cup too much there. I'm not that strongly against this. Like, I'm not saying this is like the worst
Okay,
hire
okay,
ever. What's
okay.
happened, but I think it's just that like we talked with the playoff success. It's like it's just that hasn't come. I will say though, I have no doubts about this. The roster he's coming into coach is without doubt the most talented roster that he's ever worked with as a head
I
coach.
yeah, and
That's a fact.
sneak peek, like since we're on the topic, we want to talk about like biggest winners in free agency. I feel like Mike Brown's got to be one of the biggest winners, man. Like he has dealt with, again, as I mentioned, like the asterisks of the seasons he's had, where it's been, terrible health for his team, the Warriors, and terrible, uh, just team defense, talent wise, for the Kings, but offensively, defensively, both sides of the ball. Um, I'd say even athleticism wise, like the type of players that he's coaching, like he's going to have so many more tools to work with. And I think that's honestly why I get excited about the hiring, is that you give this guy who's had very minimal defensive playmakers, like that's a new challenge. And I still will not fully understand the lack of the Knicks' ability to take it to the next level defensively, like I feel like they can. That's a whole other discussion again, if that's going to change based on who's starting at the 1 and 5. But we've talked well, you know, been excited about the type of defensive playmakers they have in the Knicks, and Mike Brown has that opportunity. You give a guy like him the opportunity to do so. Not sure why Tibbs wasn't able to figure it out. A guy that we know, love, and respect for his defensive coaching ability. But Mike Brown, he gets a shot at it. He's got the cards to work with at this point, so we'll see what he does. I think it'll work out. I think it'll work
Yeah.
out nicely on that end.
Yeah, no, I think that like I'm saying there's definitely there's obviously I do believe he has the opportunity to succeed here. I do think that it's not like a Michael Malone or someone like that who is very similar to Tibbs. I think this is a guy that's a little bit more flexible, a little bit more personable, maybe. I don't know if that's the right word to use, but I think he's a guy that can knows in certain situations where he needs to maybe throw the arm around a certain player and another situation where he really
Mm,
needs to get on a player's back and ride him. I think there's a bit more balance there. He's always come across very well. Like he was a big proponent behind the whole like the beam thing, which is obviously awesome to see. And you want to be believing your head coach. You want him to have that kind of aura around him. Not to say that Tibbs' way didn't work, but this is obviously they made a point of saying this is not the way we want to go. This is not the modern NBA. We need a more flexible, modern coach, and I think Mike Brown can absolutely be that guy. Which I mean, please God, let's hope that happens because the Knicks obviously it's nice to see they made a couple of. Obviously, they only had very little room to work with. Obviously, adding a guy like Clarkson, big upgrade on campaign. Adding a guy like Yabusele, he can
mm,
obviously be a
mm.
strong bench player. Like they moving forward, like you can be a lot more confident the Knicks having a legit 8-9 man rotation than we did last year. And with the new look at the head coach, yeah, I mean, obviously reason to be excited in New York for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean that as a whole, I mean I think that they were going to be fine no matter what they did. I think that it just could have just hit reset and been okay. But getting Jordan Clarkson, that's great.
Yeah.
That's a great move for them. Um, Yabu, I want to see some more from Yabu. Really love his potential, but haven't seen enough of it on NBA court. I will say, going back to Brown for a second, would you be down for them to bring the light to the beam over to New York? If we start lighting the beam in New York? You do that? I'm sorry, the Knicks don't really have like a patented
Nah,
winning
he's got to come
celebration.
up with something new. He can't be bringing it over from Sacramento. It's the same thing over from Sacramento. He's got to think up something new for New York.
Yeah, you need something new besides interviewing drunk people in the street and assaulting Pacers fans. That seems to be the typical celebration we have in New York.
Maybe.
But yeah, very happy with those two guys that they signed. Happy with that signing. I think it's just another year of growth. This team's gonna get better no matter what. I think just with another year of being together and seeing their weaknesses in the playoffs and working on that.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And let's switch it over then to the other big signing of the day. DeAndre Ayton is a Los Angeles Laker, and who knows how helpful Milwaukee making that deal with Miles Turner allowed the Lakers to get this guy. But then again, at the end of the day, this is a guy that they never in a million years would have traded for. So why should we be so excited about them getting him as a free agent?
I think there are a few things surprising about this. One, I mean, the biggest surprising thing is looking back at where Aiton was on a championship contending Suns team, a guy who, you just felt he was on the cusp of something. And it was, you felt he was either on the cusp of becoming what he is now, or maybe he was going to sort it out. He's going to figure out consistency on the defensive end. He's going to figure out how to, be a little more aggressive in his offensive game, and that he was going to become like, top 10 center. I think that if you were to bet on, what if you had to poll yourself and say, what percent chance do I think that this guy will be a top 10 center, top five center in the league that year when they won the championship? Would you say it was like
And they
50-50?
didn't win the championship. They got to the
All right,
finals.
sorry. When they won the Western Conference, when they competed in the finals, like I feel like at that time, maybe I wasn't 50-50. I think I was a little bit lower, but I still felt like in the right situation, maybe there's 30% chance. There was still a window, there was still a path to being that level of like a all-star, perennial all-star type of center.
Hmm.
Like that was there. So the point we're at now, where the Blazers trade for him to get Rob Williams, and then they don't see enough, and they're like, are you gonna get Klingon? And they say what Klingon has to offer, like,
Not enough.
cool, we're gonna get a second round level swing for the fences from China
At 14, right? They picked him like
at
super high.
16. I think I want to say 16.
Yeah.
Sorry, I don't have this in front of me. But that level of fall for DeAndre Ayton, a like true blue chip type pick. Like it wasn't really a swing when he was picked. It was well understood, that's his value. He's a top three guy. But now we're at the point where we're gonna even question whether or not he's going to be a valuable member of this team. Because I have questions. I don't think this is a simple like, oh, this is such an obvious reclamation project. He's got that pedigree. He just wasn't used right in Portland. No, Portland sucks. Well, Portland didn't suck last year. They had growing pains. They were young, but they were not non-competitive. They played good defense. They had some difficulty offensively, but he was never a stabilizing force of that. He was never a any showing any signs of growth defensively on a team. And this is not I was a tanking team. Who cares? No, that team valued defense. Their role guys who got minutes valued defense. Like that was the thing that they started to lean on. And he just wasn't part of that. And what the Lakers need, at a minimum, is defense. At a maximum, how do we actually see him working out offensively? Do you feel like this is going to be a fit next to Luka, which is clear if you want to if you want to talk about the whole LeBron thing about his grumblings, it's
Nah,
clear
yeah.
that that this isn't for hey who works next to LeBron. This is hey is this a guy that's going to work next to Luka? How do you feel about that fit?
I mean, I think it can be fine offensively. It's not like oh, I'm super excited. It's not like you think about what he was like that last year in Dallas with Gafford and Lively. Like I don't think I'm not sure if it can be that level. I mean, I honestly like I can't like the last time I feel like I watched DeAndre Ayton was when they lost to the Mavs in was it 2022 in the playoffs. That's genuinely like that in my mind. That's the last time that I watched DeAndre Ayton play basketball. I don't think I watched him a single game last year. Like I'm not tuning into too many Portland Trailblazers games. I'll be totally real, but obviously they're still talented. He's only 26, and at the end of the day, the only real knock against him, really, the main one throughout his entire NBA career, is what's going on upstairs. His mentally, he's just not in it. He doesn't have the mental side to fully achieve his highest potential. Can that change? I mean, it's been what 7 years he's been in the league now. Is it too late for that to change? Can JJ Redick be the one to change that? Can playing with LeBron and Luca they be the guys to help him turn around? I mean, it's so tough. You want to believe that it can be true, but I don't know. I think it's going to be really tough. At the end of the day, he's the absolute minimum what they need. He is a big man. He is an improvement on Jackson Hayes. That is an absolute fact. That's one thing we can give the Lakers. They have got an improvement on Jackson Hayes, but like I think a lot of people are saying this shouldn't deter them from potentially exploring a potential deal for a Nick Claxton or something like that either.
Yeah, yeah, of course, of course. I mean that would be far and away the type of player that you would want next to Luca. Um, but no, see, that's what I'm saying, dude. Like Aiton, we're now saying like, hey, he's a 7 footer and he's better than Jackson Hayes. Great, awesome.
Yeah, well, that's who we're
I'm
comparing him
glad
to. It's really not
we
good.
really we fixed this here. But you know, I really do think that in Lakers uniform, this is his chance. I mean, this is his last chance. We that's one thing that, you know, storylines that we see out of the summer. Obviously, you see the beautiful, hopeful type of storylines with these rookies, all the guys drafted in the top 10, top 15, like, oh, like, are they ready for greatness? And then you see all the second rounders, late first round picks, like, oh, are they going to prove themselves? Are they going to be these role guys and going to be able to impact themselves? And then in the free agency, you see some of these stories where I think Aiton is primed to prove everybody wrong because, you know, to be fair to him, like, you know, maybe that wasn't the situation he needed to be in the Blazers. Like, it's not an excuse because if you're gonna prove to the world that you play, that your brand of basketball is competitive, it's always locked in, it's, you know, effort at least on the defensive end, you know, doing what it takes on the boards, and that just the little things that hasn't been part of his game that he could choose to be, which is why the Gaffords of the world, the Livelies of the world are better just purely out of their, you know, their ferocity, their intention with how they play. And this is a chance to show that. And it's gonna be tough because it takes a lot to work with Luca. Like it's gonna be he's not a true lob threat. He's not really a rim runner. He's not really pick and pop. You know, he can play in the pick and roll. And I know I think that there's maybe a little bit too much put on how much it'll be a detriment to his game just because he's not a rim runner. Like that's just who we've seen Luca play with. It doesn't mean that they can't play the
Yeah,
pick and roll. It doesn't mean that
and
Aiton can't take advantage of those short rolls, that he can't take advantage of the gravity of Luca on his screening actions to get to his mid-range game. That's an evolution that I think could definitely be there. I mean, if Derek Lively had a mid-range jump shot, like I think he would be using it, and it wouldn't be like wouldn't be a surprise to us that Luca's passing him the ball. So I think that he has the two best possible, two best possible playmakers on the planet to help him get there. And you saw flashes of it with Chris Paul. So
yeah,
at the end of the day, this it's up to him.
yeah,
There's no excuses now. Like he's going to be in a premier spot in a premier city market with two of the most premier playmakers in the league. If you don't figure it out here, it's never going to happen.
yeah, yeah. No, this is the last hurrah for DeAndre Ayton, and like whether or not, I mean, look at it. Look, yeah, maybe he'll just come in and look at it in the sense of this is my 1 year. I got to do it. Maybe he'll only do it for this year, but this is a contract year. Maybe he's got to just go full contract year mode and really blow it out of the park. Like, don't get me wrong, I could easily see him coming in next year averaging like 15 and 10 as part of this team. It's just going to be more about how he goes about that, how he acts as like the anchor of their defense. What's he like switching? That's going to be the real keys. But at the end of the day, this Lakers team's only going to go as far as I'm going to say as far as Luka Doncic can take them because it's like I'm fully expecting, like I've said this before, Luka to come back with a vengeance next year and match, if not improve on what he did in the 23-24 season with the Mavericks, where he averaged nearly a 32-point triple double. I fully expect Luka to be able to come out and do that again next year. And if the West wasn't so stacked, I may be like quietly excited about how far the Luka could potentially take them. But the West is just the most stacked conference at the moment that we've ever seen in basketball. So it's kind of hard to know if that can be enough to even get them out of the play-in, you know?
I yeah, and I think there's a specific event that's gone on here that we need to talk about with the Lakers. So do we talk about the DFS loss?
Yeah, I mean,
It's
we could talk. Well, we could talk about it. We can talk about it as a gain for Houston. Rather, we get well. Let's switch it out.
yeah.
Let's start talking about some of the winners of the offseason free agency so far. And I think the two of them that stand out the most. The two boys in the Western Conference fighting to take the crown of the biggest threat to OKC next year, the Denver Nuggets and the Houston Rockets.
Let's start with let's start with Rockets, honestly. Rockets at the top of the list. They are the clear-cut winners. They were aggressive. They knew what they wanted. They used their leverage perfectly, which, can't necessarily say about the Nuggets, which we'll get into, but um, I think that they just did a masterful job. They kept their guys. They kept rotation guys on minimum deals. They went out and they got Kevin Durant. They did not have to spend a significant amount of draft capital, especially future draft capital. They got rid of, like we talked about, they got rid of guys that they replaced just fine. I mean, compare Dylan Brooks, compare Dorian Finney-Smith. I think you're not going to have a Dorian Finney-Smith game. You're going to have a Dylan Brooks game, but I think in terms of defense, like you
They don't
replace
need
it
it
pretty well.
anymore because of Kevin Durant, right?
Yeah, and dude, I think that I've heard some people talking about how like Dorian Finney-Smith better player than Dylan Brooks. I I no,
I,
I reject that.
yeah, I think obviously Dylan Brooks is more capable of getting hot, but I guess on the whole, I don't know, I would never. It's almost a null argument. I feel like they're a very, very similar archetype on the whole. Like you said, Dylan Brooks has those games or those quarters where he literally looks like Kobe Bryant. DFS does not do that.
No, yeah, and you'll never. I mean, you can't ask Dorian Finney-Smith, "Hey, here, take this ball and go at that guy." He's not going to do that. That is not his game. Dylan Brooks can do that. Like, you're going to have some frustrating games for him for sure,
Well, he does it when
but
he's not supposed to as well.
yeah, that's fair. But I feel like that's a more dynamic player in my mind. Um, so I mean, just looking at the Lakers with Dorian Finney-Smith, with him throughout the season, in those 43 games, their defensive rating jumped up by 2.4. We saw the on-off numbers as him being the most impactful defender that they had. Um, not to fly back to the Lakers, just real quick, like losing him is definitely tough, and I think it's more to save money. If we look at the projections, that they did not want to lose out on the opportunity to be bigger players next season. So I think it's a pretty clear signal that they're more so focused on the future. And looking at Houston, who's focused on the now. I mean, they got another wing, they got another versatile big guard 3 through 5, sometimes 2 through 5. Um, and DFS, you plug him into Dylan Brooks' spot. Like you said, he's a little bit going to be more of solidified into his role as a shooter on the offensive end. And on the defensive end, I mean, they just got another guy. They have another elite defensive guy, and they just continue to stockpile this. And um, I think they took a really great page out of the Pacers model because you just look at how much depth they have behind all their key positions. You know, Adams goes out, well, there they go. They go win out, they got a Capella. Really will fill in that role as a rim runner, as a rebounder, as an interior defender. Comfortable place for him. You
Wonder if they
know,
keep all three of them. They obviously got Şengün, Adams, and Capella now. It's going to be interesting to see if there's not murmurs around trade deadline about them moving on from maybe a Capella or something around then.
I don't I don't necessarily think so because because here's the thing. I think that Capella signs there knowing that, hey, I'm not the guy. Steven Adams is already well in that role of like, I'm not the guy. Şengün's the guy. They don't
Mhm.
need either Adams or Capella for a whole length of a season to be like a 1A player in the front court. Like they can slot into the roles, and if Adams tweaks his ankle, if which is it's gonna happen. He's a big guy. Capella, he gets like his games played is ugly. You know that he's gonna miss time. And you don't worry that they lose out on a key dynamic of their game. Like they realize, like, oh, we can beat the crap out of other teams. We can out rebound every single team. We can just pack the paint against every single team. And obviously there are nuances around how they're going to need to figure out their offensive side of things, which I think the Kevin Durant thing starts to really make things make sense. But they went out and got all the guys that made that happen. They stuck with Fred VanVleet. They got, I mean, Aaron Holiday, every time he got on the floor was just a positive contributor for them. Got him for a minimum. Jeff Green, you need a spot, couple minutes. I mean, he's such a good veteran presence there, but minimum. Jason Tate, like a guy who honestly could play rotation minutes on most teams in the NBA. Like he is a fine like ninth guy, but got him on a minimum. Like they just kept their guys in a way that I thought was important, and on top of the top heavy moves that they got in Durant, and they just I think they're not done is such a tough word to use with them because they haven't proved deep playoff runs yet. I think they can do it, but done is in like I don't have I don't have new questions or I don't have major questions.
No,
I think
let's come and see it. Yeah, it's during that.
yeah.
They're in the okay. Let's see it now. Okay,
Yeah,
you've done it.
I
You've created. You've done all the stuff off the court you needed to do. Let's see it on the court.
yeah.
That's where Houston's at right now.
I mean, I think there's a lot of times when like a second seed has a tough time keeping everyone and you don't know if they're going to make decisions that shoot themselves in the foot or make financial decisions that they have to preserve themselves for the future, like so many teams suffer with in the CBA. But I don't see them moving. I think that similar to how the Thunder had made moves to kind of keep things solid season ago, like the Rockets are right there. They're the second seed. It's theirs, not theirs to lose in this Western Conference that's so tough, but they've done enough where like I feel okay with it. Do your thing. Just play out the
Yeah.
season.
No, I mean this season is going to be interesting. I mean, like especially like day one of free agency there, and I almost felt like every other move that was made felt like the guy was going to the Rockets. I felt like somehow it was benefiting the Rockets,
Yeah.
whatever was happening around the league, and then another team that were in that same mold were the Denver Nuggets,
Mm.
who obviously made that big trade. They finally got off that Michael Porter Jr. money. They traded him to the Nets. Obviously, had to give up that first rounder to get off the money, which I mean, we've seen a little bit of that recently. When that's how important, that's how valuable it is to kind of have your books clean and your books straight in these modern NBA times, and get Cam Johnson in. Then that opens up the ability to bring back Bruce Brown. Then they are able to get rid of Dario Saric and bring in Valanciunas. That's a legitimate backup big, which they haven't had since like what, ever?
Never. Never.
They haven't had ever.
But since it was Nurkic and Jokic back in the
Uh,
day.
And uh, bringing Brown back is obviously just huge. He was such a big presence for them when they went on that title run. Having him back in the fray is amazing. And just getting a guy in Cam Johnson, who obviously there was a lot of hype around him last year, and the guy like 17 million less they're paying him, and I think he could absolutely match the production of Michael Porter Jr. Maybe the only deficiency maybe is in rebounding, but I'm not sure how much that would take effect on the overall play of the team.
You don't think so? I think that's one thing that I wonder about it is like his presence on the boards was important and
Was.
Denver being a consistently good rebounding team was important. Um, I think that size wise, there were still times where, Michael Porter Jr. is a flawed defender, but is a big dude who is mobile, and that at times was helpful. They're different guys. I think on the defensive end, they're much different guys. There are, I think that you trust Cam slightly more on the perimeter, but you don't trust them to the level of like, oh, that's you put them on the other team's best wing, even second best wing. Like you don't hide Cam, and Cam's not bad. Cam's solid, but I think that it's a little overblown how much
That's
better
what
he is.
Aaron Gordon's job is. Michael
Yeah,
Porter Jr. was never doing that either.
I know, but this that I think there's this misconception that Cam Johnson as a wing is inherently like just a better defender because we think Michael Porter Jr. is that bad. I I, I don't think the tape plays out that way. I don't think that it's that the defense is that significantly better.
Okay.
But the money is crazy. Like the amount that they save on this deal. Um, but I think that people need to hold their horses because I think the thought is, oh, they just opened up a mid-level exception. They're gonna go do something with it. They're gonna save that for the Aaron Gordon extension. They have to. That's the tough part. They.
No, I think they used that exception to bring in Bruce Brown.
But what was the number amount that was agreed upon?
It still hasn't been revealed yet,
Yeah.
but I think they used. I don't know how much does a guy like Bruce Brown command. I mean, I feel like he'd command most of that.
Mm.
It's hard to know. I don't know,
What has Bruce
but
Brown done in the last 2 years?
yeah, I know. But this Bruce Brown has kind of been a obviously the not the same player or anything, but this is kind of like an Al Horford sort of
No, he's playing
situation.
for
Like
that
what we
minimum.
saw when Al Horford left the Celtics back in what was it 2018, 2017, 2018, and he instantly looked like a terrible player. Went to Philly, that didn't work out. Went to OKC, and then looked like he was completely on the decline. Got back to Boston, and instantly looked back to his best. And I feel like that Bruce Brown could have that similar sort of impact as well. He thrived playing off the bench in this Denver team, and I think he can come back in and fill in that role exactly as he did before.
Yeah, I'm looking up. I'm almost positive it was the vet minimum that they signed for. Um,
But that's what Tim Hardaway Jr. signed for anyway.
yeah, or maybe it's THA that I'm thinking of. Um, but I think that the right thing, if they do end up finalizing the deals in this moratorium, that it is going to be that they use the mid level. They use all of it. I think it's a good thing. You have Nikola Jokic on this team. It's tough to project out, whether the cap is going to fully inflate by the percentage that they said it will, versus if it doesn't, because then that makes things a little bit more difficult for that how much money they'll actually have to give to Gordon if they'll be able to if they're going to be over the second apron again, which they probably will be. But
A lot of 1 year deals as well, which is important to remember. Like
yeah,
Brown's 1 year, Hardaway's 1 year.
that's
Valanciunas, I'm not
fair.
sure if he's on an expiring. He probably is. So there's that
That's
element
fair.
of it as well. But you look, I got to
And
remember this is the team that they forced the Thunder to 7 games, and they're coming back as a better team. And I know you're going to disagree with me here, but if I'm talking about who I think is most likely to dethrone the Thunder in the West, I'm looking at the Nuggets before I'm looking at the Rockets. I think that the Nuggets,
no, I don't disagree with
on
that.
the one hand, they have the best. They obviously have the best player in the world. And outside of that, they've improved on their roster from last year. Got closer to what they were in their championship year, in my opinion. And another year of growth from Christian Braun. Get Aaron Gordon back healthy. I think this Nuggets team. I think it's great to see them when they're obviously initially coming out like, ooh, will Jokic sign this max extension with us? Well, maybe we have to trade Jokic, and then it turns into them really kind of finally getting back to investing in Jokic and not taking away from him.
Yeah, and I think sneakily the signing for Jonas Valanciunas, I think might be maybe their most significant one. Like
Yeah,
low key,
legitimate. Yeah,
because there's gonna be so many regular season games where you look back and you're like, why did Jokic play 38 minutes against like the Wizards or the Raptors? Like, what happened there that they played that? And the non-Jokic minutes are just so bad. His stats are so incredibly insane because of the amount of time he has to spend on the floor because of the runs that this team gives up without him. And I think that's sometimes an indictment of the Russell Westbrook experiment. It's an indictment on their lack of player development of their playmakers, and it's more so an opportunity now for Jonas Valanciunas, who is kind of on his own, a just a bench destroyer. Like you throw JV out there, and like the opposing team wants to play a little small, they want to play quick, he's just going to demolish you for three straight possessions. And you're going to get a quick sub in, then you have to start doubling, and then you get a little bit of offense out of that. And it's just sparks like that that will keep them afloat. And the Nuggets just need more like ways to score. Because a lot of times last season was like, all right, Russ, run on the bench, everyone runs, fast pace, fast pace, fast pace, go for every steal, play in all the passing lanes. And that was such a volatile way to survive because the Nuggets would give up runs in those situations, or they go on a big run. And it was more often than not the net negative, which is why Jokic is the absolute king of on-off metrics because the bench is always terrible. So he's just another stabilizing force. THJ too, just like a shout out. Like
Yes,
best shooter
obviously,
they've had since KCP, obviously.
yeah, like, great to get him in there. I think he'll be more of a plus player for them ultimately than Russell Westbrook, even though he'll probably do a little bit less when it obviously comes to like playmaking and things of that nature. And like just on JV, like I think he can be one of the best backup bigs in the NBA. We've just never been able to see him be able to legitimately do it. We've seen him have to start too much. We've seen him like just in wrong situations. I think him as a backup to Jokic, I think, is a pretty perfect situation for him where he could really thrive. So I like what the Nuggets have done. Like it's great, and I like the reason. I don't know. I think you said, did you say you agreed with me about them over the Rockets? I
Yeah,
think
yeah, yeah, yeah. I agree with that.
we just have to see like obviously the key thing obviously see how KD fits. I think it's KD. It's hard to see him not fitting in almost right away. Just hoping that he's healthy come the playoff run. That's also a big thing. I need to see Şengün come back a little bit more polished next year. I know like there's a lot of moments where it's ugly with him and it's still really clumsy. I'd like to see him just refine his game a little bit more polished to it. Can Jabari Smith prove that he's a legitimate role starter in this league? Can Amen Thompson maybe get up to average 3 point shooter? Like little things like that, like likely to come together, but they haven't come together yet. So that's why there's just a couple of extra question marks. Even though, like you said, we are looking at Houston and saying, come and show us." But I think there's just a little bit more belief. Obviously, Denver are just that little bit closer. I think to being the complete package. We've seen it a little bit more. I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, yeah. I think my casual take on it is I think the Rockets will be better regular season team. They
Hmm.
got more juice for it. They got more young guys. They proved it in the regular season, but playoff wise, when it comes down to it, I mean the Rockets got to make it out of the first round
Hmm.
before you come talking.
Yeah,
Um, so who's the next winner?
I guess it's got to be the Atlanta Hawks, right?
Oh yeah, let's go. This team, sheesh. I mean, they were busy. They were busy. Let's break down their depth chart now too. They added Nikhil Alexander Walker. You put him next to a secondary, behind a secondary guard, um, in Dyson Daniels, and that's another playmaker as well. And you get rid of Capella, you open up the opportunity for a Okongwu, but you got KP starting there. I think that there are going to be a lot of minutes where they play together, but Okongwu slated
Yeah,
as
we'll
a
see
more
that.
solid five, who's probably going to play a lot if KP's again missing time. Jalen Johnson. I mean that's very
Return.
exciting what he's going to be able to put together after the season we saw from him. I mean they're rookie man. I mean we know he's not likely going to be like a superstar level player, but we saw how his size mattered on the court. We saw him being a very good two-way player. We saw his shot start to come around. And then you look at Trae Young, a guy who very early peaked in a way, took his team all the way to the Eastern Conference Finals, surprised, and then it's just been totally falling, sliding, 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 sliding. I think this is going to be super big comebacks year for the Hawks. And the guys that they added to this team. And I really feel pretty strongly this is the best roster they've had next to Trey in ever. Like this is the best roster they put together, and a lot of that is an if around if KP is truly going to be healthy. But I mean, the defensive talent and the size, that's a big thing, dude. Like it's Trey Young, 6'8" guy, 6'10" guy, 6'10" guy, 7'2" guy. Like you you can't put together a better amount of length against one of the more diminutive guards in the NBA.
Like they've gone out and like done like exactly like there's no excuses for Atlanta next year. Like no excuses for Quinn Snyder as a coach, no excuses for Trey Young as a star. Like they've got went out and got shooting and length to put around Trey Young. Okay, Trey, we've gone and done it for you. Let's go and see. Let's see what you can do. Let's see if we're going to be willing to give you a max contract. That's a big thing that's on the horizon there as well. the Hawks obviously. We keep hearing about all these teams in the East, like, oh, they've realized that the Celtics and the Pacers are out, so they've gone and made these moves. Maybe that's true. Maybe they would have made moves anyway. We will never know. But Atlanta has put themselves in a great spot to achieve what they did way back in 2021 again. And I'm really looking forward to seeing how it all plays out. And like, if this team is healthy, they could be really fun to watch, and they could absolutely be top six seed, maybe even higher in the Eastern Conference.
Do you feel like they're still missing a playmaker on this roster?
Yes. But at the same time, that's where I guess they're hoping to see the growth from Reese Shea and from the Jalen Johnson at the same time there as
Mhm.
well. I think they're two guys that they're looking at to get more of that out of. So
Yeah,
on paper, maybe yes, but I think it's like worth the risk, like going in with and believing these other guys can do it for you.
yeah. The thing I do kind of see that the one thing they're missing on is that second playmaker. I think that as a secondary playmaker, you switch out Karis LeVert for Nickeil Alexander Walker. Nas gonna be able to do it for you. Possession here, possession there. Karis, I think, really proved that he can be a point forward in this league. So you do lose a lot of that, but the defense is just not comparable between those two. But maybe Jalen Johnson does take a step. I mean, we saw a lot more big action with him. We saw that he was able to, get downhill a little bit more off mismatches, and I think he's going to take that next step. We'll see. Risa Shea, I think it's got a long way before
Yeah, no, that's
he's going to
fair.
be initiating any offense.
Yeah, I'm super excited about the return of Jalen Johnson. He was like one of the most
Mm,
exciting players to start out
mm.
next last year, and obviously that injury was a real killer blow to Atlanta. But they're going to be a super exciting team to watch, and I think even though obviously we're saying obviously probably it's like it feels like the Cavs or the Knicks is to lose next year. Like Atlanta are a team that absolutely going to be up there saying that we can not just do what the Pacers did. They can do even more. They can maybe even go another level than that.
Who took it to another level, and it's your next winner of this
Um,
NBA
it's so
season?
impossibly hard to call this team a winner when they still feel like a ginormous loser.
I know
But
who
I
you're going
guess we
with.
got to talk about the Milwaukee Bucks.
Okay, we're on the same wavelength there because I'm like, I don't feel like I don't know, they didn't feel like they won. It's like they jumped out of a sinking ship into a ship with a little bit less water into it. Is that a win? And I think it's a relative win. I think you gotta call it. You know why you gotta call it a win, Ronan? Because they showed balls.
True.
This organization has consistently been um, a little bit on the safer side. But they've shown their moments. They've traded for Drew Holiday, won them a championship. They made that move for Damian Lillard, and it hasn't worked out. It should have. I think no one looks back and is like, "Oh, that's what a dumb move." But an organization that has not only failed in specific circumstances to just do GM trades right, signings right, understand the CBA correctly when it first came out, which led to some embarrassing failed trades. But now they've had the chance to, are you just gonna run it back? Are you gonna be respectful to Dame and just keep him on this team? Or did you see enough? And I think the sad thing is that I think you saw enough. You saw that this pairing was not going to lead to a championship. And while it's terrible that, Dame is gonna go down, he's gonna not be playing basketball for at least much of next season. They just had to do it. They had to cut ties. It was sunk cost. And if you felt that even if he came back 85% of who he was, it's that still wasn't the type of player to win with next to Giannis, you're not going to waste another 2 years of that. You can't.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough. You got to obviously respect that like this is them. Like they've always kind of made moves to do what they can to show Giannis that they're still trying to win. They still want him to stay, and that's exactly what this was. Even though obviously the reports came out, Giannis wasn't too happy about them waiving Dame. Obviously how they ended up treating him, but they had to. they had to do something. That was the only way they were able to afford Miles Turner. There was no other way they could afford to make any sort of other moves. They had no other picks to, or I think maybe they have one first round pick left to trade. Like they had to do something, and obviously Miles Turner coming in, like getting paid a fair amount of money, which obviously came out that the Pacers tried to lowball him, which is just like, I guess that's the Pacers for you. That is one team that does not like to go into luxury tax at all. But they lowballed him. Milwaukee saw an opportunity and they went and took it. And it, it's still not going to be enough to really make me believe that they can go and be a challenger even in the Eastern Conference. But I mean, like they did have to do it. But like, what if Giannis decides he wants out now? How ugly is this going to look if Giannis decides that he wants out? This could still get so bad for Milwaukee.
And oh, and we didn't even talk about the fact that the Hawks have the better of the Suns. Oh, because we didn't talk. I don't think we talked about that draft thing. Oh my God. All right. That maybe if we could talk to the losers, we do. But this is
They
such a
they have the better of the
convoluted.
Pelicans and Bucks pick in 2026. That's
Yes.
what Atlanta has. Yeah.
So yeah, we don't know where this goes down. And I think the whole Giannis thing is like, of course he's gonna say that. Like, if Giannis says nothing, then he is going to be viewed as like complicit.
Hmm.
So a player is, especially a star player to his co-star, is never going to want to be looked at as complicit. Like LeBron's going to be like, I had no idea, and maybe he didn't about the whole AD trade, maybe he didn't, but of course he had to say that, right? Like, and then of course Giannis has to do that because I think, and I don't think that's fake, right? I think that's genuine. Like you want your guy who just like fought it out and played through injury, returned from a DVT, and then got an Achilles tear. Like that's awful. That sucks. Um, I will say, not on the bright side because there's not something too bright about you getting waived and stretched and tossed
Pretty
aside.
ideal situation.
It's kind of
I think
nice.
Damian Lillard's
It's
kind of
kind
the
of
biggest winner
nice.
of everybody involved in
Yeah, do we
Milwaukee.
throw in Dave? Like Dave is kind
Like
of the
Dame
low-key
is kind
winner.
of is absolutely the big winner because he still gets all of his money, but now he can just take all that money and he can sign for like $1 million to play somewhere else. He could sign for the vet minimum somewhere where he has a chance of winning. That's the dream. He gets paid without any ties. Who doesn't want that?
Yeah, like it's the perfect layoff situation. It's like your friend in tech gets laid off. Oh, it's really rough. It's like, yeah, I'm getting paid my full salary for 6 months. Like it's the best possible thing. They're screwing off to Europe. They're screwing off to Mexico. They're just having the greatest time. This is the greatest layoff in probably NBA history. The amount of money he gets. And do we forget that Dame just obviously hates being in Milwaukee?
Hmm.
I'm not saying he hates his teammates. I'm not saying he hates the team. I'm not saying any of that. But he's never shown any excitement there. He's clearly shown he's had a difficult time there. Yeah, there's definitely family stuff involved that, like, it's not deserving for people outside of his family to talk about, but clearly was really tough for him in that point of his life to move from Portland to Milwaukee. Like, he wanted to go to Miami. He wanted to get into the sun. He wanted to go somewhere more his vibe. But maybe that's where he gets to go. Like, where do you think Dame goes next?
Yeah, I mean, like you're saying there, like I just say on that day, like obviously we know he didn't want to go to Milwaukee, and obviously he was a complete professional throughout his whole time in Milwaukee. I'm not saying like he didn't show his best form, but you never know how much of like a mental toll that could have taken on him, and how much, despite him being professional, despite him giving it his all and looking like he wanted to be there and doing everything for his teammates that he could, you never know how much of an impact that idea was always on his head. Like every time he wasn't in the arena or with his teammates, like how miserable might he have been. Like you don't know how big of an impact that could have had. I mean, he can go anywhere he wants now, because like he's got that for the next five, based for the rest of his career. He's getting paid 22.5 million a year. Like he's what, 35 now, 34, 35 now, and he's getting paid for the next 5 years by Milwaukee. So I mean, he can go wherever he wants. He wants to go to Miami, probably still on the cards. He wants to go. Maybe there's a team that somehow needs a backup guard or something. Or maybe he wants to chase a ring. Like he can really do whatever he wants. I think Miami is still a likely destination for him. I think people are talking about Golden State. I don't really know about that. People are talking about the Lakers too. Of course, the Lakers are going to be linked with everyone. I don't know how I couldn't imagine him and Steph playing together, but if they could somehow bring him in and just put him on
I
the
would
bench
love
as
that.
a
Are you
backup.
serious? Are
I
you
mean, yeah,
serious?
it'd be insane,
Bro,
but
oh
I don't
my
know about
God.
that. Like,
Can you imagine Damian Lillard bringing the ball up the court and Steph Curry is working baseline actions and you have to what does a defense decide to do? Who do you decide? And obviously, Dame Lillard isn't the same Dame Lillard, and we'll see who he is still. But that would be those two guys on the floor together would be a nightmare, both for Draymond Green and the opposing defense. That lineup would give up a lot of points, but it would also be like one of the most fun versions of basketball to possibly watch.
yeah, I mean,
Uh,
I want to see just I want Dan to go where he wants to go, but obviously it would be nice to see him maybe go to a team and be able to take a lesser role on a team like legitimately trying to compete. I don't know who that team might be, but I don't think it would be Miami anyway.
yes, they will be tough. And I think a lot of people are talking about Celtics, for instance.
Yeah.
That's an interesting prospect, given that you just got Anthony Simons. This guy has to be looking at this news and being like, please, can I get away from Dame finally? Like, he never had the opportunity. Like, this is his chance. I feel like he's going to try and prove it on a contending team. It's really a tryout,
Yeah, I
right?
will say I would be a little surprised. I feel pretty confident that this time next year, Dame still wouldn't have signed for a team, and he'll be looking at it around at his options this time next year. I feel like it's unlikely that he's back and ready to go by playoff time next year. Maybe he'll prove me wrong, but I feel pretty confident saying that he's going to sit out this entire year.
Yeah. I have a minor winner. I don't know if this is if winner is a little too strong a word here, but I think LA Clippers getting the business done.
Can I just set you one
Yeah,
more point
please,
on the
please.
Bucks? Let's just like being totally realistic. Obviously, Miles Turner is effectively a younger version of Brook Lopez, maybe a more dynamic version of Brook Lopez. Like what do you think that
Ooh.
do you think the Bucks can win a playoff series in the East next year?
Oh, win play? Yes, yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes. Yes, I do want to push back a little bit. I think the shooting is definitely there, similar. Miles Turner, his shooting definitely it fell off in the playoffs, but his gravity still remained. Uh, could he put the ball on the floor a little bit more? Yes. Do I think that he was the same interior presence that Brooke would have been? Maybe not. They're different players for sure.
Nah, come
This
on.
is
They're both, I don't, I think you'd be hard paid to actually watch and see much of a difference as an interior presence. Are you talking offensively or defensively? Defensively, pretty much
defensively.
the same, I think.
Brooke had some truly just stonewall moments in the playoffs with his size that Miles Turner hasn't recreated since his one streaky Defensive Player of the Year type campaign. Like he's kind of come down a little bit over the last couple of seasons. I think a
Yeah,
lot
but
of
just
it,
remember what Brooks been that part of the last 2 years as well.
yeah, at his age, for sure. It's a temporizing measure, and I think that Miles Turner will be better and significantly better than Brooke Lopez over the next 3, 4 years. Obviously, like you reset your timeline a little bit. Um, but I think that it looking back at Brooke Lopez's impact on this team can't be overlooked. Like
No, no, not at all. He was great.
he's
He was great. He
he's
completely
everything to them.
re-established himself in what he was as a
Yeah,
basketball player in Milwaukee.
yeah. Um, I do think that we can say that that's a big win. That was something looming over them that you weren't sure what they were going to do. And I don't think anyone thought that it was going to be stretching Damian Lillard, waving and stretching him. But you're hard pressed to think about a lot of other deals. If the stretch big next to Giannis, if your philosophy is we need a stretch big next to Giannis for that thing to work and playmaking be damned, we'll figure it out and through other measures, but we need to keep that going, then I think that's the right move.
I mean, we have to remember, like this wasn't a trade sort of maneuver. This was a free agent, and Miles Turner really was the only big sort of free agent out there that they really could have made a play at. So I mean, like this is like all they could have done. This like that I don't think their options were there to kind of like not make this move and then have been able to trade maybe for an improvement on Damian Lillard or something like that. That just option just wasn't there. But I still think the Milwaukee Bucks are in such a hole. I respect what they're doing for doing all they can to keep Giannis happy and keep competitive around Giannis. They just got to keep on digging until they can't dig anymore. But I think this situation will ultimately get way worse before it gets better. Like it could be like 2035 before the Bucks are really they have really recovered from this. Like they're got no
You
picks.
are preying on their
They've
doom.
got no picks and very little the ability to maneuver between now and 2030.
Yeah.
So let's see how it goes. Hopefully for Giannis'
Well,
sake, I want to see him stick it retire in Milwaukee, and I want to see him be able to be competitive as long as he's still one of the best players in the NBA.
yeah. I like their other guys too. I do like we'll see more from Kevin Porter Jr. I don't think that again, this is another season where I didn't see a
Starting point
lot
guard.
change. No, no. Um Micic, I think is actually really interesting.
Yeah, you
Micic
mentioned
is
that, yeah.
interesting. He's shown some playmaking shots for the Hornets. He had some like incredible games, truly. I mean, even this March 14 game against the Grizzlies, it was a 25.8 assists, two steal game where he went 9 and 10 from the field. But you look at performances like that and just on the floor, like how quick he is as a processor, how much he can pass off the live dribble, and not a lot of dynamic playmakers that the Bucks have had over the last couple of years, especially coming off the bench. So it'd be good to see someone like him. But you lock in Gary Trent, you get Gary Harris, you keep Tony Prince, Bobby Portis staying there is huge. I think that they have enough rotation guys to make it work. There's not I think we worried about the Bucks last year of like how many real like them and the Lakers, like how many NBA guys do they have? And I think they got plenty. They got a full room of rotation players at this point in time, and that has to be a win. I feel
Mm.
little bit better about their depth, at least in numbers, as opposed to like top end role players. But good rotation players where I feel a little bit better about that
Yeah, it's kind of like
than
they were
I
the
did last
fifth
year.
seed last year, and like couldn't they like how it's not too crazy to think about them maybe sliding, but I guess the benefit of no Indiana, well, I wouldn't say no Indiana and Boston will still be trying to be competitive, but maybe won't have the guys there on the floor that they need to be competitive. It's gonna be very interesting, and obviously we're gonna keep tabs on Giannis because it would not be Giannis would be totally correct to say this team is still a disaster and I need to get out of here. So it's gonna be one to keep an eye on. You did mention the Clippers. I think they're definitely a team that's made some smart moves. Brook Lopez picking him up, nice little move for them. Obviously, a completely different center to Zubac. That gives them more options, more flexibility. They obviously renegotiate with Harden, get him onto the same timeline in terms of contract wise as Kawhi Leonard, balancing out the books a little bit while still having a very interesting and creative lineup, I would say. I think Ty Lue is a guy that can get creative, and adding a guy like Brook Lopez will definitely help them be able to do that. The Clippers are definitely going to be a very interesting team next year, especially if Kawhi Leonard is healthy from the start of the
Yeah.
year to the end of it.
I don't know if I'm totally overthinking Brook Lopez there, but I feel like that having a stretch big next to James Harden, that adds a whole new wrinkle to their offense that they've not had before. And in terms of how good they've been defensively, like you get another elite drop defender like him and Ivica Zubac, who has been a very underrated top five drop defender in this league. And those two guys there, you're gonna consistently be a top five defense, top seven defense, you name it. They're gonna be the top echelon of this of the NBA. And I don't think that they're gonna go away. I think they really proved this season that hey, even if Kawhi's not healthy, we're really building something here. We're continuing to have this level of game. And Ty Lue year in, year out, he's always gonna put together these teams together. And having a guy like Brooke, I think like that's a huge dub.
No, the Clippers are a team that I think are slow. Like we had their questions last year, and obviously it was a little bit iffy and dicey when obviously before Kawhi came back, and then obviously they pushed the Nuggets to 7 games the first round of the playoffs. They kind of got the tough draw having to face the Nuggets in round one. They're a team that I don't think you can rule out having a bounce back next year. And like obviously it's so tough to know who's going to emerge in the Western Conference because it is just so stacked with talent across the board. But the Clippers are still a team that you have got to worry about, and it's going to be super interesting to see them from the start with the addition of Brook, with Harden still being one of the best playmakers in the league, with a healthy Kawhi Leonard. It's going to be super interesting to see where they're at next year. Maybe the last winner. Obviously, it's probably a little too early to say. The last winner I maybe want to mention. What about the Orlando Magic?
Mm.
Tyus
Mm.
Jones pickup,
Yes.
nice.
I do that's important. Like that's the biggest thing. It's just I don't know. You you spent a lot on what you felt that you needed, and I'm not gonna come here to rehash that. I'm not gonna rehash the trade for Bane. I think getting Tyus Jones was really important. That was a huge part of feeling a little bit better about all this. Great to reunite Tyus Jones and Desmond Bane on the same team. Um, I was really hoping that maybe they would be able to snag a Santi Aldama away from the Memphis Grizzlies. Just just morph together my two like burgeoning favorite teams in both conferences. But yeah, Tyus will do a lot for them on the playmaking side of things. That's is well documented. They really need a guy who's going to be more of a drinkster, who's going to really take some of the playmaking pressure away from Franz, away from Banchero. Desmond Bane, I think we know how much he's going to unlock that team, and both these guys, what we've seen from them to play without the ball, when you want to develop this team that's going to be primarily run by your two wing playmakers is I mean, it's good. I think they've navigated this well in this scenario where they have the chance to vault up in the playoff standings next season. I think they'll be shooting for that as long as health permitting. God forbid they have more oblique tears. We'll see what the injury of the year will be for the Magic. But we'll see, man. They traded a lot. We know they traded
Did.
a lot, and we already congratulated them for being aggressive and believing in their team. So I won't change my mind here. But it's like one of those things where like you buy that like shiny new thing, cost you a lot. You've been saving a while for it. Finally, like you went out and got it. In the first couple days, like, oh, this thing's awesome. It's a brand new computer. This is great. And then a few days later, you're like, that was a lot of money. I'm not sure,
That's
and I
it.
don't
That's
know
it.
when it'll set in. Because if
Hey,
Desmond
they're
again, if
winning a lot.
Desmond Bain doesn't figure it out, if he's not the unlocking piece to this team being a championship level team, it's not gonna. There's gonna be more moves. For
Something
you
in the
Anthony Black
water.
fans out there, yeah.
There's something in the water in Orlando if Desmond Bain can come in and really thrive as part of this team. But yeah, I think those are the kind of the main winners. Maybe we'll just talk about a few of the guys still out there on the board to finish out here. Is Kuminga just gonna have to take his medicine and stay with the Warriors?
That's. Do you believe, based on what we've seen there, that that we're missing something? That the Warrior system is so prohibitive to his potential that we're missing something?
Slightly.
Yeah.
I think there is an idea of us missing something. It would be great to see him. Obviously I'm not wishing this to happen, but it'd be great to see like that little short spell we had in the playoffs when Curry went down and we saw what he bring in the flash. Like how good would it be to be able to see that for a year? Like how nice would it be for the Warriors to be able to send him out on loan for a year and just let him go to a situation where he can really just he can be the guy, he can be put in a position to really thrive. But like from what we've seen of him, I know he'd probably him and his agent probably blame it on Steve Kerr, blame it on the system, but like he has no right to be out there demanding it to be a $30 million a year player, really. Like I don't think he's produced enough to say that that should be the going rate. I know he's looked at other guys like a Jalen Johnson and a few others like that, but I just don't see him getting that, and I just don't know who's going to be willing to take the chance on him. I feel like maybe it's gonna be Miami, but outside of that, I don't really see him going anywhere else.
Yeah. It's I think it's really tough for a player like him because what you wanted to see out of Kuminga is be more of like an on ball,
Hmm.
like, and that's just not what they're about, which is tricky because then Jimmy Butler comes in and it's like, oh well, we'll let him do that. Kuminga, stop, don't look away. That's not your game. And Kuminga's not gotten the chance to do that. Um, and obviously, like Jimmy did all the little things. And that's the thing. That's the one thing that is tough with Kuminga sometimes is that if he consistently did all the little things all the time, proper cutting, proper spacing, and the passing, like the playmaking hasn't. It's a tough system, and not everyone's built for that. And I don't think that's not his game necessarily, and that's not just something he's in. Maybe not embrace is the wrong word, but hasn't shaped him. It's more been a struggle for him to fit into a Warriors offense where quick decision making and, understanding of where everyone is on the floor or what your role is in that moment to facilitate the play. Like that's been a challenge for him as opposed to something that has carved him into this, wow, like he's such a snappy decision maker. I think he could be a lead scorer for my team because of what we've seen from his like decision making. The decision making hasn't grown, but it's chicken or the egg, right? Like, has he not been given enough leeway to do that, to really be that? Or is it just like you haven't seen it consistently enough? And when you do get it, it's like he's just leaning on his athleticism. He's, I don't know. It's tough because he's had some great games, man. Like,
Yeah.
don't get me wrong. He's had some stretches like, whoa, that like he did all the right things that game, and then he just doesn't do it the next game.
No, it's been tough. I think there's like neither him nor Kerr has really budged. Like Steve Kerr hasn't really tried to meet him halfway and given him opportunities to really show his best foot forward, and he hasn't really been willing to make adjustments to fit in with the system more. I think it would be great for him to get out of Golden
Yeah.
State. It's just going to be really tough to see where it happens, and I don't really know if Chicago are still in a position to do it. They've got a lot of wings now with the
Yeah.
like the Pelicans are a team that have been totally out there. It's going to be really tough for them to be able to make a move in terms of like going into the luxury tax and things like that. Maybe Brooklyn is still a team that could surprise and do it, but
He would
I
be a
really
fantastic Brooklyn guy.
I look at Brooklyn and I look at Miami, and outside of that, if they're not interested in making a deal, I think he's going to end up taking a pretty, I guess, probably a short-term deal with the Golden State Warriors, and then look ahead to maybe cracking through, or maybe becoming an unrestricted free agent in the next year or two. Maybe that's going to be the ultimate play for Kuminga.
Yeah. I feel like you, as a player and as representation, like you obviously view this guy as like, hey, like he's a star in the making, and he's not getting enough here. And I think it just makes sense for both sides to cut it loose, cut it loose. Like it's such a distraction, and you can't even you can't even look at this situation and look at at any possibility of him growing at all this season. There's no way. There's no
Hmm.
way. You saw that Moses Moody supplanted him firmly on the rotation. Obviously, Butler took the lion's share. He was not going to fill that void of Andrew Wiggins. What is, what is he supposed to do on this team?
Yeah,
It's going to
exactly.
be worse for his value in the long term if he continues to stay on the team. And it's
Hmm.
going to continue to be a storyline of like, oh, like, does he make the right decisions? Like, why isn't Kerr playing? Well, Kerr is like a really good coach. Like, it's probably because he isn't a good player, and that matters. Like that matters to his value, probably more than just like agreeing to like a short-term deal or even just you know going anywhere. Like he just needs to go somewhere.
Yeah,
That's
for
the end
sure.
of the story. It's too much of a distraction.
Somebody come save poor Jonathan Kuminga from the Golden State Warriors. Quickly then, let's mention, I guess, Josh Giddey. I think you're feeling confident your Bulls are going to bring him back. Do you
Yeah,
want do you want him back?
I don't think the market's huge for him. Well, it depends
I
on the
mean, there's,
number,
there's
right?
there's such a lack of money around the market. So yeah.
Yeah, it depends on if it's on a reasonable deal, like duh, like obviously, like yeah, you take someone back who's a positive. impact to the team. I think that Giddey is never going to be an impactful defender and a neutral defender. He'll always be a negative defender. But it's undeniable, like like a Tyrese Halliburton, like I'll give him that credit. Like offensively speaking, like he is one of few dynamic big guards who can grab and go and not only, just play in the open court, play in the pick and roll, and be just a tremendous live ball passer, a tremendous ATO passer, tremendous lob it. Like he can get a pass anywhere on the floor, tremendous read it. Like he's mega IQ type of player. Like he processes the game fast, and he's a big guard who rebounds, and his offensive game has gotten a little bit better. I think that those are all like selling points to this player for a team with not a lot, but it's also a team with not a lot. What does this player get you? Like it's not it's again it's a zero sum game where it's like, do you just middle? And this team has proven they're gonna middle. So if I'm gonna have a middling product, give me a player who is gonna make it exciting. And Josh Giddey's an exciting player. Fine.
You just want him to get worse at half court shots, right? You want him to not make that shot he made against the Lakers, like little things like that. And I think
Oh
look at it like this way. I'd
no,
say
that was no. You know what? Actually, no, no. I will sit here and say that moments like that this season gave gave the Bulls enough
gave you a smile, gave you some
lunacy.
joy.
Yeah, and I think that it's a good reminder of, hey, basketball is more than just grinding it up to, or did we compete for a championship? Did we compete? Oh, we didn't even compete for. Oh, did you even win a championship? Okay, why does that even matter? Why do you even want to have this player? Why do you want to win that kid? Like that. It's about this. The sport is about joy. Take every shot. Love every moment, Ronan. Come on.
Damn right, brother. You're damn right. But I guess last point on him, I'll just say you would in an ideal world, would you like to see him back on a Jalen Green type of contract?
Hmm. I think I think that's a good one. It is a really good one because he's in this weird transition point where I think you can easily sell yourself on, hey, I got a bigger role in this team. Look how well I did. Hey, that 3-point shot, that's really coming around. Hey, that floater, that's still there. Like point guard, I that is my full-time position at 6'8". See what I did
Mhm.
to the Bulls pace? The Bulls had no offense before this besides DeMar DeRozan. I came in and I fixed it. Like there's a lot of selling point for that. And I think that this is a guy that if if it's not going to make sense for him next season and beyond, it's a very tradable contract. That's the whole point of the Jalen Green contract, is that it worked out for both sides where, Jalen got a decent amount. Like he didn't get as much as he possibly could, but he didn't play that well. And kind of same thing for Josh Giddey. And I think maybe in a tier below, they're not quite the same level of player. But I think that would be kind of perfect situation, to be honest.
Yeah, yeah, fair. And then another guy that's out there, one of the valuable of his, Gary Payton the second. I just hope he lands back with the Golden State Warriors because remember what happened the last time he left? He was an
Oh my
absolute
God.
nothing. He was absolute nothing player, but then he went back up in the Warriors and he was pretty impactful again. So hopefully the Warriors find a way to bring him back because otherwise he's a pretty useless player in the NBA. Then of course there's a lot of obviously older veteran guys around there. I guess the main big one, last one we'll talk about, Chris Paul. Would you like to see him back with the Clippers? Reportedly, he wants a starting role, but also he wants to be closer to his family in LA. So someone's gonna have to give up something.
Is he finally going to the Lakers?
I mean, he probably wants a bit more money than they can offer, and like he still wants to have a starting role. So then that's a no. But that would be pretty funny.
Yeah, I don't see any situation where he's in. I mean, he could be a quote unquote starter. I mean, that defense would be tough. Where do you think he fits best? Can you imagine him like on the Magic? Imagine if he decided to say, like, that's a long way from home.
Yeah, I
all the
mean,
way from
obviously,
home.
it's how like how truthful is his like desire to be closer to home. How truthful are these reports that he still wants to be a starter? That's like a lot of it has to come into it. Like you look at Milwaukee and like on paper, I don't see a world where he ends up in Milwaukee, but like they could do with a guy like Chris Paul. They could do with like a guy who can just like run the offense. Yeah, he's I know he's 40 years old now and he's not the Chris Paul he once was, but I mean, I'd still like that. I'd still probably take him as a starter over Kevin Porter Jr. on your team.
Yeah, that's true.
I just don't see that in a million years, him going out to Milwaukee. I think you look at like apparently reports maybe go back to Phoenix, but is he going to be a starter there? I mean, it would be fun to see him back with the Clippers if he's willing to take the backup spot to James Harden.
Yeah, I would like to see him there. Maybe he goes to Miami. Maybe he goes to a team like the Magic. Honestly, are perfect. Like it matches his entire like post prime
If they haven't
arc.
got Tyus Jones, maybe if they haven't got Tyus, maybe it'd be good to get him down there.
How many real point guards do they have?
I mean, they have one in Tyus,
Yeah,
but I
they
mean,
could probably use
he's
another.
still like the third choice. But yeah, I mean, it's a tough one. But I feel like Chris Paul's guy. I feel like that could drag out a little bit. I think Kuminga's going to drag out a little bit. I feel like Giddy maybe will be the next one to get done, but I think that's just returning to Chicago, so not too much fun there. But we'll keep an eye on everything that goes down. Most of the major moves in terms of free agents are done. Don't worry, there's still going to be some trades. Remember, we saw the Karl Anthony Towns trade late last year. The trades usually end up, the big ones kind of happen a little bit later. We're still keeping track on Giannis, still keeping track on potentially LeBron James. We'll see what happens.
Nah,
Apparently, the Knicks are interested in Ben Simmons. I need those rumors to go away because I do not want Ben Simmons playing on the New York Knicks. But we finally got our new head coach, Mike Brown. Come on in. Let's get it. But yes, the NBA offseason is well underway. We've had the draft, we've had free agency. There's still so much more to come, and we will have it covered for you here on Coast to Coast. But for now, that's going to do it. Chris, thanks for sticking with me. Remember, we're everywhere on social media at Coast to Coast NBA. And most importantly, remember to take every shot and love every moment.
peace out.